Hi, and welcome to People You Should Know. I'm your host, Buddy Sampson. Today we have an outstanding, stunning, special guest in the studio. This lady has produced a film called From Science to God, Exploring the Mystery of Consciousness. Please welcome to People You Should Know, outstanding and talented filmmaker, Kathy Close.
Well,
Kathy,
thank you, Buddy.
first of all, thanks a lot for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
The pleasure is all mine. And I wanted to say, first of all, I know that your schedule was crazy, and we were trying to get you out on the show before, and you just continue to keep working on excellent projects. Like, for example, this project, From Science to God. Could you talk a little bit about that film and what was it like to work on a film like this?
Well, most of my work has been, like over the last 12 to 15 years, has been within the body, mind, spirit kind of arena. So I've done a number of films that explore spirituality, consciousness, scientific breakthroughs, a variety of different subjects. But it was great to work with Peter Russell. One of the reasons I wanted to is because I did it with the Hartley Film Foundation. And Elda Hartley was just a remarkable woman. She actually started her career when she was in her late 50s, and she died when she was in her 90s, still producing films.
Oh, okay.
And so she was really one of my role models. She was one of the first, women documentarians that did body, mind, spirit. And I think she completed about 90 films by the time she was 90, but I've actually beat her record. But Peter Russell was one of her dear, dear friends, and one of his very first films, The Global Brain, she really championed. And so I was really hoping, with the foundation to continue the relationships with some of the people she was close to.
Now, explain the whole process of producing. What does it take to produce a film like From Science to God?
Well, first of all, you have to come up with a subject matter, and Peter Russell had written a great book, although the book is a lot different than the film, but the book was called From Science to God. And so Peter and I worked together on the script, and of course sometimes those things, take longer than you want, but one of the things I try to do to keep busy is I'm usually working on multiple films in different stages at the same time. So that's why, even though From Science to God took over a year, during that same year I completed 7 other projects, full-length features. So, but they were all being juggled, and I think really that's the trick to make money in this business is just really having kind of a good flow where you're working on one stage, but you're working on something else that's coming along, so it just kind of flows together.
Now, during that time, you mentioned the other films you were kind of juggling during that time.
Yeah.
What were some of those films?
Andrew Harvey's Sacred Activism, which was, I think, a really powerful film. So, it was just different things in different stages. I was also working on a film with Greg Braden, who's a really wonderful New York Times best-selling author. So I really enjoyed working with Greg. I've worked with him a number of times over the years, and he's just one of the greatest guys you could ever meet. Just such an intelligent, but such a warm and wonderful man.
And speaking of From Science to God, I understand you actually brought a clip up from that particular project. Yeah. We should take a look at it. What do you think?
Yeah, that'd be great. And I'm just remembering another one I was working on at the same time as this one is Arun Gandhi, Gandhi's son. So
okay.
That was called the Great Minds series, and what I did during that time was I was doing projects with what would be considered the great minds of our time. So how wonderful is that? You get to hang out with the greatest minds of the time and talk to them and get to know them.
Well, after your clip, I want to go deeper into some of those relationships of the people that you work with. So without further ado, let's see From Science to God.
Hi, I'm Peter Russell, and all my life I've been fascinated by science and the discoveries it's making about the world. But the one thing that science hasn't been able to explain is the very fact that we are conscious, that we each have an inner world of experience. It's easier to explain how life evolved from simple cells into human beings than it is to explain why any of us ever has a single conscious thought. And yet the very fact that we are conscious is the one thing we cannot deny. This is the great mystery of consciousness. Why do we have this capacity for inner experience? And it's not just human beings that have it. I often hear scientists say that animals aren't conscious. But is that really so? And when I see a dog lying on the floor asleep and its legs are twitching and its nose is quivering, I imagine it's dreaming, and if it's dreaming, it's having an experience. And also, why else would we bother giving our pets anesthetics when we operate if we didn't believe they were conscious? Why would we want to make them unconscious? The difference with human beings is that we know that we know. We are conscious that we are conscious. Now, one way of thinking about consciousness is to liken it to the light inside a film projector. At the heart of the projector is a source of white light, and the light shines through the film and takes on the colours and forms of the film, and then an image appears on the screen. Now what we're actually seeing is just shaped light, but we get so engrossed in the movie, the stories, the feelings we're having, the sadness, the horror, the excitement, that we forget it's all just a form that light has taken on. A similar process happens in the mind. All I ever actually experience are the images appearing in my consciousness. But it doesn't seem that way. When I see a tree, it looks as if I'm seeing the tree directly. But science tells me something completely different is happening. Light enters the eye, where it's absorbed by the retina and it triggers electrical impulses, which travel down nerve fibers to the brain. The brain then analyzes the data, and from that creates its own picture of the world. I then have the experience of seeing a tree. What I'm actually seeing is not the tree itself, but the image of the tree that appears in my mind. And this is true of everything I experience. Every sound, colour, sensation, taste, smell, memory, thought. They're all just images appearing in my mind. It's all forms that consciousness is taking on.